Homework 2.6, Combinations of Functions, Video 6. Homework due Friday, May 22nd, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. In this final video for this homework section, we're going to look at composition one more time, but I want to show you a variation of a composition question that you will experience in your homework. So take a look at it, and I challenge you, or rather I invite you and challenge you to pause the video and see if you can find both answers. We're given f of x equals the square root of x and g of x equals x plus 1. And we're being asked to find f of g of 5 and g of f of 5. So again, I invite you to pause the video and see if you can figure out how to do it. And now I'm going to do it. There's actually two ways to do this. They both should give the same answer. But let's take a look at answer number 1. We're being asked to put a number into a function, but we don't know that function yet. So we could start by finding the function f of g of x, and then inserting 5 at the end. So let's find the function first and then insert 5. F of g of x equals f of g of x. In the previous video, I told you I'm going to show you how to do this in one move. To pull this off in one move, you start by writing the outer function, the square root of x, but replace the x with parentheses. Think of the outer function as what you are going to do, and the inner function is what you do it to. So inside those parentheses, we're going to substitute what g of x equals, which is x plus 1. And at this point, I realized that I didn't need the parentheses. So we put the g function into the f function. And now that we have f of g of x, we can find f of g of 5 by simply substituting the 5 in and getting the square root of 6. At which point we would stop because A, that's irrational, and the homework won't want a decimal that goes forever and never repeats. And B, we can't simplify the square root of 6. Because think about it, the only way you can break it down is the square root of 2 and the square root of 3, and I don't know the answer to either of those. So now instead of one problem I can't answer, I have 2. So the square root of 6 would be an acceptable stopping point. That's one way to do the problem. Create the function and then give it the 5. But there's actually a way to get the answer without creating the function. Answer number 2. Just do the question that you're being asked to do. Use the definition on this problem. Remember, f of g of x is f of g of x. So f of g of 5 is f of g of 5. But the difference between evaluating a function composition at a numerical input as opposed to a generic input like x is when you go to the inner function, you can do it. When this was an x, there was nothing we could do but replace that function. But since the input is a 5, I know how to do g of 5. I know what this is asking. I'll do a little thought cloud here, just work it out real quick. G of 5 means to put 5 into the g function. The g function says, give me an input, and I'll add 1 to it. So g of 5 is equal to 6. So now I can just f the 6. And f says, take the square root of what you give me. So it is possible to do function composition with a numerical input without actually creating the composite function. Just send the 5 through the first function, get its output, put that back into the second function, and get your final output. Let's try the other one. In fact, let's do this one using the second approach, where we don't create the function, but rather we just do this problem. G of f of 5 is equal to g of f of 5. Go to the inside. Maybe think about it. I'll draw a thought cloud. For f of 5, what does f do? F says, give me a number and I'll square root it. Okay, you can try, but it's a 5. So we have g of the square root of 5. Awkward input, but it's the correct input nonetheless. Now we have to do what g says. And what does g say to do? Give me your input and I'll add 1 to it. Can you combine those? No. Why? Well, for several reasons, but if you're thinking there's a 6 somewhere, there's not. This 5 is inside the square root. This one is outside the square root. They are not in the same locations. They can't be added together. Now, had you written it like 1 plus the square root of 5, which you don't have to, it might be a little more obvious that you can't combine them. But either answer is correct. They are not like terms. We are done. And we're not only done with this problem, but we're done with this video and the series of videos for homework 2.6. So give it a try and contact me if you have any questions.